This is kind of the procedural approach, and I'm going to simulate it with this little MIDI controller, which hopefully is being captured. So what this controller is going to simulate is like bone velocity or whatever animation kind of motion we want to drive the Foley. And it could be several, which is what makes this interesting. Now the content you see in SoundMiner, this is just similar to that second approach where it's longer chunks of like texture. And then it would, based on like if we took one of the legs or something like that, so I'm just matching kind of the animation speed, but it could be anything, you know, it could be the arm. And these 8 represent different 8 layers. So I'm guessing, yeah, something like this I'd want in here. So this would be mixing in and out based on an animation like bone or joint velocity or something. Now, if it was the real animation, you really get that real movement, so that real parameter. And then all these are just different textures. And this is where like the different outfits play a different one. So these are not one shots. These are more like looping textures that we would get some like velocity and parameter from the animation to try and drive this. But we would have to assign like which texture do you want? Like how many layers do you want to mix kind of in and out? And there is like, I mean, that's kind of a suit of armor style. So if we go back to, go to that guy. So let's try this guy. This. And the content, the audio you see, is just looping. Because it mixes in and out, you really get a lot of interesting variation too. And you could, on top of that, pitch that texture. So speed it up and stuff, like maybe when they're running. I'm not doing that in this simulation, but... I mean, if I put all these up, it's just all texture. But this is where, I mean, you could get a lot of variation and variety out of it. And this could also support stuff like mounting, where technically you don't necessarily want the Foley to be, you want it to be a little bit different than walking. So, and even if you're gliding, for example, it should almost be like steady. If you imagine this was like gliding, maybe it's just some slow modulation on it. So this is, hopefully I'm explaining this. That's the procedural approach, where it's not bound to the footstep. It's not bound to an event. It's bound to like this velocity or some parameter on an animation. And I'll leave it at that. And yeah, for the audio nerds, this is my custom Max interpreter, which I'm taking the MIDI in here and I'm assigning it to the same channel so I can drive SoundMiner at the same time as like Ableton Live. So anyways.